Hi everyone, Flaming Footy here and welcome back to another YouTube video on the channel. And today guys, we are going to be continuing our AFL 2022 round reviews. Yes, here we are for another massive round review, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing every game from round 21 of the 2022 AFL season. And I'll tell you now, as the season is getting on, the games are getting bigger and bigger. The top 4 and top 8 race is heating up, and we have just seen another chapter or another episode of that race right here in round 21. We'll be having a look at the ladder afterwards. So things are starting to heat up, and let's go ahead, deep dive. We'll dive deep, deep dive, dive deep. Have a look at round 21 of the 2022 AFL season. So it started off strongly on Friday night, where Melbourne 13-11-89 lose to Collingwood 15-6-96. Collingwood, they are now real contenders. This is the performance that I feel like just did it for most people, to win them over, going, yes, Collingwood are going to contend for the flag this year. And they didn't do it in the best sort of... Melbourne did give them a bit of a smashing in the inside 50s. And Melbourne were up for most of the game as well. It was a bit of a last quarter failure by the Demons, which led Collingwood to win, because they were good, especially over the second and third quarters. They held off Collingwood really well. But they did really well in the second quarter. That's why they got the bit of a jump on them. And then the third quarter, Collingwood just came piling back and then finished it off in the last. So it was a really good win for Collingwood, this one. I think if you go back, having a look at Collingwood's wins, they've beaten the Demons twice this year. So that's really something good. They've beaten a really quality side. I think Collingwood, they are one of the quality sides of this year. And they showed on Friday night they can do it against really good opponents. First game, Saturday, down to Tasmania we go. Hawthorn 10-10-70 beat the Suns 8-15-63. Gold Coast inaccuracy is what cost them the game. They did have a good chance to win the game here and keep their slim finals hopes alive. But unfortunately enough for them, they will not be making finals this year. Better luck next year for Gold Coast. They did have a really good season though this year. You go back, have a look at some of their games. They were really competitive in lots of games this year. So they had a really good season. Probably their best season in the AFL, or if not one of their best. But yeah, they just couldn't beat the Hawks down at Tasmania, which it is a tough place to go and beat a team like Hawthorn. I don't really know when the Suns have been down to Tasmania, so it is, if you don't know it, it is a hard place. And the Hawks, they always had a pretty good jump skip on the Suns until the last quarter, where the Hawks scored one behind and the Suns had chance of victory. They kicked 1-5 in the last quarter though. So you can't say the Suns didn't have their chances, because they most certainly did. Now to Giants Stadium, where Essendon recorded one of their most poor losses of the year. GWS 14-12-96 beat the Bombers 10-9-69. Giants, unbelievable stuff, showing they can get back on the winners list and win. And they did it in somewhat good fashion after a brilliant second half. So they dealt the damage in the second quarter, but the Bombers managed to respond, and the Bombers took the front, or led, in the third quarter. But then the Giants, just from there, they just went berserk. They just started absolutely blowing up, and showed they were better than the Bombers. Giants Stadium isn't the most easiest place to play. The Giants know the ground pretty well, but yeah, brilliant win for the Giants, showing they can get back on the winners list. They did it. They've won, and the Bombers, not a great performance by them, but they've still had a pretty good second half of the year. Have the Bombers and the Giants. This is a good win for them, showing they can get back on the winners list. So now to Marvel Stadium we go for the Saturday twilight game between the Western Bulldogs and Fremantle. Western Bulldogs 11-12-78 lose to the Dockers 14-11-95. Marvel Stadium for the Dockers this year has been a home away from home. The Doggies played the ground very well, but lose this game, and yeah, their finals hopes are getting fainter. They're still there. They are definitely still there with the Giants and the Hawks to come. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether they make the finals or not. A lot will rely on Carlton. If Carlton get a win, their finals hopes are over, because you'd be thinking the Tigers will make it. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Doggies go though in their last 2 weeks. There's still slim hopes. The Dockers, their top 4 hopes have also risen up now after this game as well. And well, they were outright leaders from about half time. From about half time, the margin never really changed. Every time the Dogs looked like they were going to come back, they always managed it really well, though, did Fremantle, and always just got the comforting goal back again. Really fantastic win by the Dockers. Really good. Very good. Nice win by them. Now to the first game on Saturday night down at Cardinia Park, where Geelong 17-8-110 beat St Kilda 10-5, 65. The Cats gave the Saints an absolute bashing, if you'd like to call it, again for the second week in a row, built off the back of a very good third quarter, which is where the Saints were in the game at halftime. But from there, they just went bang, 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 bang to seal the deal. So they had a really good first quarter. Did Geelong. In the second quarter, the Saints brought it back. But yeah, in the third quarter, there was no catch from the Cats after that. And exactly what they did last week, also the week prior to the Western Bulldogs. They destroyed them in the third quarter. That's exactly what happened. The Saints kicked 3 behinds in that quarter. The Cats kicked 5 goals. And then they just finished off the deal in the last quarter, kicking 5 more goals. Brilliant win by the Cats. I think they are the minor premiers this year. Well, they probably will end up being the minor premiers. And they are the premiership favourites. The Saints, their run is tough, and I don't think they'll make the 8. Now to the second Saturday night game at the Adelaide Oval, where they pulled Adelaide 10-11, 71. Could not beat Richmond 16-13, 109. And you feel after this, the Tigers are a good chance to feature in September. And they are definitely not the team you want to be facing, because they got right back to their best on Saturday night against Port Adelaide. They were doing everything right. And again, it's really important, built off the back of a good third quarter. And that's where the game can go from being interesting to boring. Or to a smashing, should I say, is a third quarter. That's where you can really get away from your opponent. That's exactly what Richmond did. They kicked 7 goals in the third quarter, which gave them victory. Even though the game was close at quarter time and half time, Richmond was smashing Port Adelaide in all stat areas anyway. So it was going to be their game to win, unless if Port Adelaide switched on in the second half, which they didn't, and Richmond continued to smash them in stat areas, and that is why they ended up winning by 38 points. Brilliant win for Richmond, and you think after this win now, they'll be featuring in September and possibly finish in 7th spot, not 8th. Now to the first game on Sunday afternoon, where North Melbourne 13-10-88 lose to Sydney 18-18, 126. The only reason why North lost by 38 was thanks to a 7-goal Nick Larkey. Otherwise, if they hadn't have gotten that, they probably would have ended up with another score around the 50 or 60 mark. And Sydney, just continuing what they're doing. They've got a brilliant season. They've had a brilliant season, and they're just going to keep on going. In their hope for a top 4 finish is not guaranteed, but they are hoping to finish inside the top 4. And this performance is another reason as to why. 18-18, inaccurate. They could have won the game by more, but still managed to get some healthy percentage out of it. But in the last quarter, though, both teams actually did really well. The Sydney were pressing on the 50-60 point margin, and the Roos managed to cut it down to 38, which isn't too bad for them. So the Roos showing a few signs of improvement in this game. But it was always Sydney's game. They had it at half-time and at three-quarter time. You knew North Melbourne weren't going to be coming back. But they didn't just give up and let Sydney win by 70 points. They really tried in the last quarter. And they only lost by 38, which, to be completely honest, is not a bad result for North Melbourne. Now to the Gabba, where Brisbane 17-12, 114 smash Carlton 12-9, 81. They only win by 33 in the end of Brisbane. It was another fade out last quarter, but apart from that, they played a really good game, and they again had the game locked away at three-quarter time. But Carlton in the last quarter kicked 8 goals to 4, and to only lose by 33 beats Carlton's absolute delight. It is tough to play up at the Gabba against Brisbane, and three-quarter time you knew the game was over. Brisbane were the much better side, 4 goals to 0 in the first quarter, and they just started to get even further up in the second quarter. And then Carlton came back, kicked a few goals, but then Brisbane again just led by over 30 at half-time. They led by close to 60, probably about 58, 57 at three-quarter time. And then in the last quarter, Carlton just kick a massive goals, lots of goals to try and come back. Doesn't work, but they only lose by 33, which could have been a 70 or 80 point win for Brisbane. Now to the final game of the round, which was Milestone Mania at Optus Stadium in Perth. West Coast 13-8-86 could not beat Adelaide 16-6. 102. Now, the milestones, real quick, may as well go over them. Josh Kennedy, his final game of AFL footy, he got sent off with 8 goals. Perfect way for him to be sent off. Unfortunately enough, the Eagles couldn't get a win, but the Crows, continuing their good form that they had after the Carlton win. And then also Willie Rioli playing his 50th match for West Coast, and Rory Laird kicking 2 of Adelaide's first 3 goals, playing his 200th game for the Adelaide Crows. But yeah, the Adelaide Crows and the West Coast Eagles played out a really good game on Sunday afternoon at Optus Stadium. And it was a really 50-50 game. West Coast really did own the second quarter, but it was the third quarter where the Crows started to get flying. And then in the end, after a very close last quarter, the Crows just prevailed to be the better of the sides in a really good game of footy. Josh Kennedy, of course, he was the real best on ground in the game with the 8 goals. Brilliant way to send off Josh Kennedy, but the Crows win by 16 points to continue their pretty good purple patch. They've beaten the Blues pretty well, and now they've beaten the Eagles. 2 very good wins for the Crows in a row. So that is round 21 of the 2022 AFL season. Collingwood beat the Demons by 7. The Hawks won over the Suns by 7. The Giants over the Dons by 27. The Dockers over the Dogs by 17. The Cats smashed the Saints by 45. The Tigers got over the Power by 38. The Swans got over North Melbourne by 38. Brisbane got over Carlton by 33. And Adelaide got over West Coast by 16. Alright, round 22 now. What have we got coming up? Well, St Kilda vs Brisbane opens it up on a massive Friday night game. Then the Doggies play the Giants' first game on a Saturday. Crows take on North Melbourne, also second game on the Saturday afternoon. Saturday twilight game is between the Suns and the Cats at Metricon Stadium. That's the Cats' real hard game. Well, it's not really going to be. I mean, it might not be that hard for the Cats, but it's their hardest of their last 2 games. And then Melbourne play Carlton on the Saturday night game. Second Saturday night game is between the Dockers and the Eagles, the Western Derby. And then the Tigers take on the Hawks first game Sunday. The Swans do battle with the Pies in a real top 4 clash at the SCG. I think that one's going to be one of the best games of the round before the Bombers meet with the Power to close off round 22. Round 23, we'll have a look while we're here. Brisbane-Melbourne opens it up on a Friday night. First game on the Saturday is the Giants taking on the Dockers at Manuka Oval. Then North Melbourne will be playing with Gold Coast. Second game on the Saturday before the Cats take on the Eagles. Saturday twilight at GMHBA. The Bombers take on the Tigers. First game Saturday night before Port Adelaide meet with Adelaide in the showdown. I think that's going to be a really interesting showdown, that one. And then the Hawks do battle with the Dogs, which could decide whether the Dogs get a top 8 spot as well at Utah Stadium. First game Sunday, Carlton versus Collingwood. Another massive game. Probably would decide whether Carlton get a top 8 spot as well, and whether Collingwood get a top 4 spot. And then the final game of the round, St Kilda versus Sydney, whether Sydney get a top 4 spot or not. And I think, again, Brisbane and Melbourne will also decide whether Brisbane or Melbourne. I think the winner of this game gets a top 4 spot, the loser doesn't. And then I think, depending on other results, the Dockers may or may not get a top 4 spot. Now, the ladder, let's have a little look at how things are going. So, you'd be thinking now the Cats would be locked into the top 4. And then I think the rest of the ladder can really go either way, right? So, we have Collingwood in second on 60 points. They've got a tough game versus Sydney now. That's going to be interesting to see how they go on that one. And then Melbourne are in third on 56. Sydney are in fourth on 56. Brisbane are in fifth on 56. So that's going to be interesting to see. I think Melbourne and Brisbane in the last game would in round 23 will definitely decide who gets the top 4 spot out of that. I think Collingwood and Carlton will be a big one as well. But yeah, I think Melbourne-Brisbane is going to be a massive game for the top 4 in round 23. The Dockers play with the Giants, and they also will be meeting with the Eagles. So their top 4 hopes are still alive. I think this is going to be a really interesting end to the year. However, Carlton, they're not locked into the top 8 just as of yet. Richmond, their run home isn't too bad, so you'd be feeling like they'll end up with a spot, probably 7th spot. And then there is still room for the Dogs to make the 8. The Saints won't make it because they've got the Lions and the Swans coming up. But, yeah, I think the Dogs have their last chance against the Giants. And if they drop a game, well, then we do have our top 8 decided. So, I think the top 4 is going to be really interesting. I don't think we've got that set as of yet. I think any team from 2nd to 6th can easily finish in any of these positions. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the round goes on next round. Next round, we'll be getting lots more answers to how things are going on. round 22 as well. We'll be getting all of our answers from, but it was a big round 21 of the AFL 2022 of the 2022 AFL season. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. So then you guys will never miss another video on the channel. Thank you guys all so much for watching. So bye everyone. Flaming Footy out.